Danny's Tavern had the kind of lighting that made everyone look a little guilty. Yellow bulbs buzzed faintly above warped wooden tables, and the smell of beer, fried food, and old smoke clung stubbornly to the walls. Country music hummed through battered speakers, loud enough to discourage conversation, but quiet enough to let arguments breathe if they needed to. It was Friday night, and the bar belonged unofficially to off-duty cops. Daniel and David Thompson sat side by side in a corner booth, identical beers untouched in front of them. At 34, the twins shared the same height, the same broad shoulders, the same disciplined stillness that came from years of physical conditioning. But their calm wasn't the relaxed ease of men unwinding after work. It was deliberate, observant, controlled. They hadn't been there 10 minutes when the attention started. "Hey, you two." Officer Brett Coleman's voice cut cleanly through the music. Sharp, practiced, the voice of a man used to being obeyed. Daniel didn't look up. Brett Coleman stood with his hands planted on the table, flanked by Officers Rick Torres and Jake Morrison. The three formed a loose semicircle, blocking the booth, blocking options. Their casual clothes couldn't fully hide what they were: badges clipped to belts, weapons not quite concealed, authority worn like a second skin. "I think you'd both be better off leaving," Brett continued, leaning closer, "before things get complicated." Daniel finally raised his eyes. Calm, neutral. "Is there a problem, officer?" he asked. That calm irritated Brett immediately. Rick noticed it too, the lack of tension, the absence of fear. Rick frowned slightly, instinct stirring. "The problem," Brett said, pressing his palms into the table hard enough to rattle the bottles, "is that this isn't really the kind of place for people like you. We don't want trouble." David looked up then. His eyes were steady, unreadable, not defiant, not submissive, just tired. "Trouble?" he said. "We're having a beer." Jake Morrison snorted, swaying slightly. He was drunk, too drunk, and his grin was sloppy. "You don't get it, do you? This bar? It's ours. Our turf. And we don't like suspicious characters hanging around." A few patrons glanced over, then looked away just as quickly. Nobody wanted to be involved. Everyone understood the equation. 3 cops, 2 black men. The outcome was usually decided before the first word was spoken. Daniel and David exchanged a glance, half a second long, invisible to anyone else. But in that instant, years passed between them. Assess, measure, decide. Brett mistook the silence for submission. What he didn't know was that Daniel was cataloging weaknesses. Brett's exposed right side, Rick's hand hovering too close to his gun, Jake's unsteady balance. David, meanwhile, had already clocked the security cameras, the exits, the bartender's growing unease. "Look," Daniel said evenly, "we'll finish our drinks and leave. No problem." Brett slammed his palm down. "No, you're leaving now, and you're to thank me for being in a good mood." Daniel's jaw tightened just enough to feel. A memory flashed. 2 boys, backpacks on their shoulders, stopped on the sidewalk after school. "Did you steal these?" That day, they'd kept their heads down. This wasn't that day. David reached slowly into his pocket and pulled out his wallet, holding it up without opening it. "Before we go, I'd like to see your IDs, just to confirm you're actually officers." Brett's face flushed. "Are you challenging me?" Rick stepped in, placing a hand on Brett's shoulder. "Hey, they're leaving. Let it go." Something about the twins' composure made Rick uneasy. Confidence without bravado. Calm without fear. Jake laughed, loud and ugly. "You think you're smart, huh?" He pointed at David. "You think you can come into our town and act cute?" "Our town," Daniel repeated quietly. Brett shoved Daniel's shoulder. "Get up." The music faded. Or maybe no one noticed when it stopped. Glasses froze midair. The bartender's hand slipped, a glass clattering into the sink. She reached discreetly for her phone. Daniel and David stood at the same time, movements mirrored, precise. Identical posture, identical control. "We're leaving," Daniel said, "but you're going to regret how you handled this." Brett laughed. "I'll decide what I regret. I think I'll search you outside." David studied him with something close to pity. "You have no idea who you're talking to." Jake scoffed. I don't care if you're kings of Africa. Here, you're nothing. The twins walked toward the door. Brett and his partners followed. Rick felt a chill crawl up his spine. The brothers didn't rush, didn't hesitate. They moved like men who already knew how this ended. At the door, Daniel turned. "This is your last chance," he said. "Back down. Apologize." Brett puffed out his chest. "Or what?" Daniel smiled. Not anger, not defiance. Patience. "Nothing," he said. "Just thought you deserved a warning." The door swung open. Night air spilled in. And none of them, not Brett, not Jake, not even Rick, had any idea that the next 15 minutes would dismantle careers, expose corruption, and rewrite their lives permanently. The parking lot was dim, lit by flickering street lights. Brett shoved Daniel against a car, metal cold against his back. "You people think you're equal," Brett snarled. "That's the problem." Jake circled David. "I bet you got drugs." Daniel said nothing. He was elsewhere. Fallujah, 2011. 3 seconds to decide. Brett slapped him. "I'm talking to you." "Careful," David said softly. "Some words can't be taken back." Jake shoved him. "Or what? You'll call the cops." "We are the cops." Brett emptied Daniel's pockets, tossed his phone to the ground. "Stolen, huh?" "Give it back," Daniel said. It wasn't a request. Rick's unease turned to dread. Jake fumbled for David's pockets. "Freeze." David didn't move. "Do you know how many laws you've broken tonight?" David asked calmly. Brett laughed. "Street lawyer." Rick finally spoke. "This is enough." Brett ignored him, pulling out handcuffs. "You're coming in." "No," Daniel said. 3 seconds of silence. "What?" "No." The word hung heavy. Rick stepped back. "Brett, stop." Jake drew his baton, and everything changed. Jake's baton cut through the air with a sloppy whistle. It never landed. David moved his head just enough. 2 centimeters, no more. The strike passed harmlessly beside his face, momentum carrying Jake forward. He stumbled, boots scraping asphalt, nearly losing his balance. Before anyone could react, Daniel already had his phone in his hand. "Filming," he said calmly, voice clear and measured. "Unprovoked assault by an armed off-duty police officer against an unarmed civilian. Turn that off." Brett lunged. Daniel stepped back once. Perfectly spaced, never rushed. Brett's hand grasped nothing but air. David raised his own phone. "Now we have 2 officers attempting illegal seizure of private property while committing assault." Rick felt it then. The certainty, cold and unmistakable. Military, not just trained, not lucky. These men moved like operators. Years of discipline lived in every step, every angle, every pause. "Brett," Rick said urgently, grabbing his arm. "Stop. Now." "Shut up." Brett snapped, shaking him off. "I'm not letting these guys make fools of us." From the back door of the bar, Louise stepped outside, her phone already recording. "County sheriff's been called," she announced, "and the footage is uploaded." "You're finished," Brett snarled. "Health inspections. Licenses. That won't be happening." The voice was calm, female, authoritative. A woman stepped from a parked car, suit crisp, badge visible. "Assistant District Attorney Lisa Monroe. I just witnessed at least 7 criminal acts," she said. "Shall I list them?" Brett's face drained. Jake stammered. "They provoked us." "Did they?" Lisa raised her phone. "Because your behavior tells a different story." David lowered his phone. "Good to see you again, Prosecutor Monroe." Recognition flickered. "Commander Thompson." She turned. "Captain Thompson." Silence felt like a dropped weapon. Rick closed his eyes. Brett blinked. "Wait, what?" Daniel stepped forward, posture shifting. Not threatening. Commanding. "Captain Daniel Thompson. United States Army. Ranger Battalion." David followed. "Commander David Thompson. Navy SEALs. Team 6. Reality collapsed. You didn't identify yourselves," Brett whispered. "We're not required to," Daniel replied. especially not to drunk civilians impersonating professionalism. Rick sank onto the curb. Lisa didn't smile. Sheriff's Department will take custody. Sirens cut through the night. Handcuffs snapped shut, this time on Brett, Jake, and Rick. Phones buzzed. The video was already viral. By morning, national headlines followed. By afternoon, investigations multiplied. By nightfall, careers were over. 17 victims came forward. Then more. 6 months later, Brett served coffee at a roadside diner. Jake sold insurance by phone. Rick worked night security, eyes down. The police department was rebuilt. Daniel became Major Thompson, teaching ethics and restraint. David advised the Pentagon. Louise expanded her bar. Lisa Monroe became chief district attorney. And one truth echoed everywhere the story was told. Justice doesn't need power. It needs proof, and arrogance always provides it.